You and I live in a world that is increasingly obsessed with being validated. Everyone seems to have a desire to be seen, a desire to be heard, and a desire to feel valued. A great example we see of this is social media. When's the last time you watched a video on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or anywhere, and you didn't hear somebody asking you to like, share, and subscribe at the end of it? Back in the day, being validated might have been having a good job or a nice brand new Cadillac in the driveway. Another common example you and I might see of validation is in the workplace. The constant strive to get to the next job, get a promotion, jump the corporate ladder just a little bit. Now, another example that we see to get validated, I was trying to find a good example, and I'm going to tattle again and kind of make fun of my favorite team here. As many of you know, I'm a Cincinnati Bengals fan, right? And we see a lot of validation when it comes to money, especially in the NFL. Now, football players obviously make tons of money, millions and millions, tens of millions of dollars. But sometimes, every once in a while, there's some type of contract dispute where a player feels like they should be recognized and validated with just a little bit more money. The Cincinnati Bengals had a pretty good example of this last season. Our star wide receiver, Jamar Chase, was looking for a contract extension. And rumors started circulating that the number he wanted was around $40 million a year. Now, I would probably work for $40 million a year. I'd probably work for half of that even. But a rumor started going around that the highest paid wide receiver in the league also made $40 million. And Jamar Chase had requested that he make $1 more a year. $1 more, $40 million and $1 a year is what he wanted. Now, he ended up getting $42 million, so he definitely got that dollar. But how much did money play into the fact that he needed to feel validated? Many people today live with the mindset of, I'll be happy once I get blank. New job, a six-figure salary, some type of pedestal, something that they wanted. Now, validation isn't inherently wrong. If you or I worked really hard at our job, maybe we did a little extra work, maybe we, knew our boss liked reports written a certain way, so we wrote them that way. There's nothing wrong with feeling validated if you receive a promotion. If the social media department at church works really hard on editing a video or a series or a podcast, and they put out a big series, a big production, and it gets 1,000 likes, and a lot of people share it. Certainly nothing wrong with the media department, the people who worked on that, feeling validated. However, an issue arises when the sense of worth of a person becomes tied to that validation. We've all seen where someone maybe doesn't quite get the promotion they want, they don't get that $40 million and $1 a year, or maybe the video they make didn't get as many likes as they thought. When our value is rooted in validation from the world, we become vulnerable to disappointment and instability. If y'all please turn to Ecclesiastes 2, verse 10. I'm going to try and find a biblical example here of worldly validation. We're going to look at the example of King Solomon. Now, King Solomon had it all. We know he asked God for wisdom, but he had wisdom, wealth, power, influence, success, attention. He had pretty much everything the world could offer him at the time in abundance. But let's see what he had to say about it. Again, we're going to pick it up in Ecclesiastes 2:10. For my heart rejoiced in all my labor, and that this was the reward for all my labor. Then I looked on upon all the works that my hands hath done, and on the labor for which I had toiled. And indeed, all was vanity, and grasping for the wind. There was no profit to be had under the sun. Solomon had it all. I tried to find some numbers online, do my own math. If you want to do the math, Solomon's quote-unquote salary would have been around $1.6 billion, with a B, dollars a year. Now, I would also be willing to work for about half of that. Solomon had literally reached the top of the corporate ladder, and he realized that that ladder was leaning on the wrong wall. His conclusion was simple. Validation from the world was empty. Validation from the world was fleeting, and it simply could not satisfy the soul. So the key question I'd like to ask is, who are we seeking validation from? I think we all know the answer there is God, and that our priority needs to be to please God, not to please the world. If you would please turn to Galatians 1, verse 10. Again, that's Galatians 1, verse 10. It says, "For do I now persuade to men or God? Or do I seek to please men? For if I still sought to please men, I would not be a bondservant of Christ." This verse makes it rather clear to us. You cannot fully serve Christ if your main goal is seeking the approval of the world. Pleasing God and pleasing man are in conflict, and at some point, one of them is going to have to give. Once again, we see this example with work a lot, right? Maybe your boss says, "Hey, Jimmy, that report, it's pretty good, but we need it Sunday morning. I know it's Friday night. Maybe if you could just come in early tomorrow, maybe a couple hours, make it look all good. You'd probably get that promotion over Johnny in accounting." Well, sometimes people make the wrong decision. Sometimes people decide that they would rather get that promotion than honor and please God. We all know God's validation is better than man's and what we should be striving for. But how does God validate us? Obviously, most people would say that they want to seek God's approval. But let's find an example of God giving approval and validating someone. If you would please turn to 1 Samuel 16, verse 7. Again, that's 1 Samuel 16, verse 7. So how does God look at us? How does God see us? How does he validate us? It says, "For the Lord does not see as the man sees. For man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." God clearly isn't concerned with the same external markers of success that people often value. Salary, likes on a video, a Cadillac, or a 2023 Grabber Blue Mustang GT with the Performance Package SP22 wing and optional carbon fiber trim, or whatever car you guys might like. God isn't really concerned with the fact that, oh, well, I feel pretty good about myself because I've got that new car and I've got that new promotion. God is concerned about the heart. He's concerned about the character, our faith, and our obedience. In that 1 Samuel 16, we're looking for a new king of Israel at the time. We all know the story, right? They inevitably usher out all of David's brothers, the tallest, the strongest, and they might look good. Their outward appearance is good. But God chooses David because he looked at his heart to see if he was valid to be the next king of Israel. Brethren, in conclusion, the validation you and I may get in the world is fleeting, it changes, and it can be taken away. God's validation is eternal and rooting in his unchanging nature. God sees us, knows us, and he calls us to be his, not because of our outward success or what we do to impress others or what car we drive or how much money we make, but because of who we are in him. Let's make sure we're not living for the validation of man, but for the approval of God.